probably the first YouTuber to have ever actually bought the Ecoflow Wave 2. Now what that means is I get to tell you the good, that is awesome. The bad,
nails down a chalkboard.
And the ugly. I did genuinely buy the Wave 2, here is my invoice. I even used another YouTuber's discount code to get £50 off. But I didn't buy the Wave 2 to keep my van cool. So under this rib bed used to be a Truma Combi 4E that ran on LPG. Now I have future plans for the van that did not involve said Truma Combi 4E that ran on LPG, so I removed it. But one of the major conditions of camping with my wife is warmth. What I will say straight off the bat about the Wave 2 is the app. The app on the Wave 2 is absolutely amazing. Using it from bed, monitoring temperature control, battery capacity, changing it from eco to high output, the app really works. Apps sometimes for me are a bit of an added distraction that don't really help you in the process of using said product. But in this case, the app, I would say, is really worthwhile having, probably even more user-friendly than the buttons on the top itself. So we do have the ability to turn the Ecoflow on. We can put it in cooling mode. It's going to remind you that you're turning it into cooling mode. We can turn it onto fan mode. We can change the temperature. It will even tell you the air outlet temperature that is pumping out. There are in fact a few ways in which you can use the Ecoflow Wave 2. So not just in cooling and heating mode. What I mean is you could use it in a tent scenario like this. But may I remind you, one of two things is going to happen here in the UK if you leave your Ecoflow air conditioning unit on the outside of, say, a tent. And that is, one, it's going to rain, just like it has done here when the weatherman says it's not going to. In fact, it does. And you do not want to leave this on the outside in rainy conditions. Or two, someone is going to walk off with it. And you could, of course, use it outside without the use of any ducts whatsoever. You could basically use it as a tabletop fan. There probably are smaller fans available, don't get me wrong, but that is one of the possibilities. Air conditioning in a van is a bit of a luxury to have, and with that luxury does come the size. It's not the smallest unit in the world. I still do believe that for what this is doing, which is air conditioning, it is reconditioning your air, and it could cool this van down in no time at all. With all that in mind, the size of the unit is then in fact quite impressive. But in van world, size is a bit of a premium. I don't believe this is going to appeal to people in Volkswagen Transporters. You just do not have the space. But in a van such as this, if you did have a hot trip planned, this could be the difference between being comfortable and not. And the great thing is with a portable unit is you are not losing all of this space permanently. This is an addition which you can choose to take with you or choose to leave behind, knowing where you are or are not going. And the other premium commodity in the van world is power. How are you going to power this thing? Now, if you were ever on an electric hookup, this would not be a concern. It has a 240 volt 3-pin plug. Use it until your heart's content. Condition the air all day long, 24 hours a day. Absolutely beautiful. If you are off grid in any sense of the word, you're going to use some other options. Now, you can, in fact, use this XT150 fitting on the side here. That will allow you to use any of the other Ecoflow Delta range and Rivers and things like that as power banks, and you will literally use those said power banks as the power source. Or, and this is the option that I would probably advise the most, is buy the additional battery that basically slips onto the bottom of the unit and takes up an extra, say, 40 mil. It has its own independent battery. Let the unit be the unit. Don't use any other external power source. Don't drain your vehicle's leisure system to power an air conditioner. There's no good having an air conditioning unit if you can't even turn the lights on or make a brew. So here's the controversial bit. To stay true to the manufacturer's instructions, you would duct the unit in two ways. So we have one larger duct like this, and this basically clips on to this section here, which then in turn clips to the back of the unit. Then we get the smaller hose. Now this is in fact the exhaust. So once again, we fit this to our plastic vent cover, even though it's not necessarily a cover. We install that to the top of the unit. This then needs to be vented to outside. Now they do in fact supply this foam template. So if you did want to make a window out of cardboard and duct tape that to it, then that's an option. Or if you wanted to make something out of timber, that is also an option, but not the best. Or you could get yourself one of these. Now this is a window board with a vent hole from Omit Van. It's absolutely tipping down, and that's why we don't use the unit like this, because at any point it could tip down with rain and it will die. All we would do to install this is basically wind our window down a little bit, slip it inside and do the window back up. And that will give you an area for us to put our duct through, but you haven't got big gaping holes which are going to negate the air conditioning totally. Take our vent, squeeze it out the window. I'm not going to lie, it is a bit of apparatus, don't get me wrong. I probably could tuck that behind that seat if I wanted to. So that's a little bit better. Now listen, you can't have an air conditioner and not have an air conditioner. It's bulky, it's heavy. I'll put the weight down here. I mean, it's not so heavy that you can't move it, but it is an extra item. But you can't have your cake and eat it. You either want it in your van or you don't. I wouldn't say it's in the way, but it's not necessarily doing you any favors. The seat is now pushed right forward. It's going to take some space. It's going to take some weight. It's going to take some money. You can't have it and not have it. If you are contemplating air conditioning because you are going on a trip that needs it, you're going to have to suffer with the fact that it's going to require a bit of space and it's going to require a bit of setting up. But this is portable, and that's what I love about it. If you were to dedicate a certain amount of space all the time for one of these inbuilt air conditioning units, that space is always taken. With this, you can pick and choose when you want to use it. I use this because I have no heat source, and it was a very quick way to ensure that we could still go camping and I wouldn't get it in the neck if it actually got cold. Well, in fact, we went away and it was 26 degrees and raining. It was absolutely horrible. So when I thought I'd be using it for heat mode, I was in fact using it for air conditioning mode, and I used it in eco mode, just a gentle tick over, trying to get to 17 degrees, and it lasted 2 days. 2 8-hour sessions, let's call it, and I think I still had 20% remaining. Power consumption is all about usage. What I mean by that is if you were trying to achieve an unrealistic temperature and you have the window open, for example. So if I told the Ecoflow to get this van to 16 degrees and I had the window open, which was creating hot air, it would never do it. It would never achieve that temperature, and therefore it would run on max for about an hour and probably cut out because it would never achieve that temperature. Now, if you created a sealed environment where it does actually have a chance to change the air temperature, because that's what it's actually trying to do. It's not just blowing cold air, actually taking that warm air and making it cooler and spitting it back out through a filter. What I did notice from that point of view is we had next to zero condensation. Now, I don't suffer with condensation considering this van has so much glass, but there's usually just in the corner of each window pane, there's enough that you could probably write UAO. Well, that was all gone. It's actually taking away the humidity in the air. It's air conditioning, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you were on a hookup and you could use this to your heart's content, use this over any kind of heat source because this creates nicer air. I'm actually trying to say is it should have been stuffy and horrible because it was 26 degrees and it was humid and it was muggy and it was sticky. But with the air conditioning at 17, 16 degrees, the air was so nice. 16 degrees isn't just a 16 degrees. You can have 16 degrees and it be sticky and horrible and the van could feel stuffy. The van felt like a really, really nice place to be considering the conditions were so horrible. That's air conditioning. Now, while that unit is ramping up, I want to mention the fact that I am only actually, in fact, getting rid of the exhaust heat. So the guys over at Omit and a few other YouTubers agree, some people disagree, that by, in fact, letting the air recirculate through the unit is actually, in fact, a better way of doing it. Because if you were trying to create cool air in here, as the air temperature goes down, for example, air intake on the back is bringing in cooler air than it would be if it was sucking from outside. So that is a bit controversial. It's the only one they do. Hundreds and hundreds of people happy with the product. So what are your thoughts on that? Should it have 2 holes as per manufacturer's instructions? I'm basically covering my backside here for all you people that say you're supposed to have 2 vents that go outside. Yes, you are, but unless I use my dodgy piece of wood, this is what I've got to use. I don't want to use that piece of wood. I think Earl at Omit Van saw my dodgy piece of wood, and that's what made him reach out. Oh, he sent me some window vents. So these basically do exactly the same as what the window vent for the Ecoflow does, but they stay in position all the time and they allow airflow into your cab area, but don't allow water to go in. And it's got little bug barriers in as well. Now, I know for a fact that Andy over at our Van Tails, he drives around with these constantly in his van. And it does say not to do that, by the way. It's probably not totally legal, Andrew. Oh, he's got it nailed over there. Got a little bag to put them in and everything. I've got the proper treatment from Omit Vans now. In that intro, I mentioned the noise. When it first fires up in the heat mode, there's a really spooling heat exchanger noise. I thought that was going to be the noise the Ecoflow made, and I was about to bust it with a hammer. Nothing like that. Once it first fires up, after that, it's basically mute. I use earplugs when I'm camping anyway, so I genuinely couldn't hear it. You cannot hear this any more than you can hear any other kind of heat source or fan. A typical layout for a long wheelbase van over here in the UK just seems to be putting a Maxxair fan at the front and a Maxxair fan at the rear and relying on that cross-through ventilation. It's not until we go abroad that we realise that we could just do with a little bit more. I had the same. I went to the south of France with a 6-month baby and it was 40 degrees. I would have given my left leg for an Ecoflow Wave 2. So the truth is, this will get you out of jail. This will be the difference between comfort and not comfort. The only thing you need to consider is, have you got somewhere to put it? I keep mentioning the size of it and it makes me sound like I'm saying that it's really large. It's the power bank thing all over again. It's absolutely fantastic that they have got all of those components into such a sizable box, but you've still got to put that box somewhere. The reason I haven't gone through too many tests in this video is because there are too many variables. The outside temperature makes a difference. The inside temperature makes a difference. How well you've insulated your van makes a difference. If you leave a window open makes a difference. There are too many factors for me to perform a test and tell you it's going to do something one way or another, because every single scenario is different. I know that my van, as well insulated as it is, yet it's got glass all the way around, I can have 2 8-hour sessions on eco mode achieving 17 degrees when it's 26 degrees outside, but that doesn't mean anything to you, and it won't mean anything to me the next time I go and use it, and the temperature inside and outside is totally different. You'll learn your own best way to use it, and it is a very decent bit of kit to have in your arsenal.